Australian coverage of sport by these media outlets, have they dropped the ball, Tony?
Are you asking how, or have they?
Have they? And then how?
Well, I think so, and I'll give you an example, Ahmed. I woke up Monday morning after Wimbledon. I was up at around 5 a.m. and I was looking to the results for Wimbledon for the men's final. And my go-to is usually the Herald Sun because it has provided sports results for the best part of 5, 6, 7 decades for many people around the world. And I had to go to its competitor, The Age, at 5:38 a.m. I think they had posted the results that Carlos Alcaraz was the winner. I then went to the Daily Mail. They had posted results that Carlos Alcaraz was the winner. And then I went to the Daily Telegraph. They posted results, but the Herald Sun waited until 9:40 a.m. to post the results of Wimbledon. Now, to me, yes, I've had a great affiliation with News Corp, particularly the Herald Sun, but I just feel that their online component is beginning to lack. Where we go for all of our sports results and also news is no longer the premium outlet that you're going to get everything first.
But why is that happening is the real question. Why is this occurring?
Look, there's many theories. I think one of them being the Daily Mail is actually outstripping them for eyeballs. And maybe, look, this is only a conspiracy theory, but is News Corp looking to have the Daily Telegraph as its number one online outlet with news.com.au and maybe not injecting as much money and effort into its other mastheads, be it the Herald Sun, be it the Adelaide Advertiser, be it the Courier Mail in Brisbane or Western Australia?
So one thing for sure is the Daily Telegraph has picked up their online game. If you look at what they're doing on TikTok and all these other platforms, they're 100% doing that.
Which is great.
Yeah, it's interesting. In terms of Fox Sports as well, like from what I'm hearing, that a lot of these games, the commentary team is not even on site. There's only like 1 or 2 people on site. So that's also changed.
COVID, yeah.
Yeah, so that's also changed a lot, and they reckon that it worked during COVID, and they reckon that it's working. It worked, so why wouldn't they keep doing it?
Then it becomes a cost-cutting measure, and if they can do it with one commentator at the ground and one boundary rider, and then 2 special comments persons in the Melbourne studio, they seem to think it's valid.
Exactly. So interesting.
Well, what's your point?
Well, me personally, I reckon that my concern is why this cost cutting is actually occurring. So my concern is I always look at how do I go to the root of the problem, understand what the root of the problem is, and then pretty much go through and solve the problem. And the fact that these guys are cutting costs so much really concerns me. But then they turn around and they sign these deals worth $4 or $5 billion over 6-7 years. Like, I just don't get it. It's just really, really interesting.
And did you notice or know that the AFL went to Channel 7 and said, you are not doing any external footballing programs, bar the front bar, about the AFL? So they've dropped Talking Footy, they've dropped Game Day, and 1 or 2 others from it, and Talking Footy from its lineup. And the AFL is asking, how can the commercial free-to-air broadcaster of the AFL, which has injected billions of dollars into its rights, not then invest in analytical talk programs?
Okay. But why? What's the reasoning here?
Well, they're saying they're going to wait until next year until the new broadcast rights deal begins. But to me, it doesn't make sense. Channel 9 doesn't have the rights, and they lead the talk show programs every week with Footy Classified times 2 programs on a Monday and Wednesday, the very popular Sunday Footy Show, and one other, which escapes me. But, Channel 9's investment into the AFL product has been supreme. And I'm just worried about Channel 7 in terms of its outdated thinking in regards to being football analysts.
Wow. Really interesting. Really, really interesting.
Well, no longer a network's sending entire production teams to Wimbledon or the French Open or to the US Open. They're taking a local feed and having their expert commentators back in the studio in Sydney commentating as the AFL does. I mean, yes, it's going to save an enormous amount of money, but what about the professionalism? Or is it just the way of the future?
From the sounds of things, it is. It really is.
Well, what about boxing in terms of Fox Sports and main event? Don't we historically send a Ben Damon and a Jeff Fennick internationally to cover the biggest fights that involve us?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there you go. So why is boxing any different to any of the other major sports?
It's very different. I can go on a tangent there. It's very different in many different ways. But the thing is, the structure of boxing is very, very different. It's just like what I don't understand is that out of all the cost-cutting measures they can have and do and make, why would they go after the one thing that people love, which is the commentary, that live feeling? You can almost tell that it's been commentated from not from the actual ground, because at the ground you hear all these noises and backgrounds and screaming and yelling and whatever. But it's just I'm just seeing that live experience should be moving forward, and I honestly believe it's gone backwards in terms of that feeling that we used to have and feel watching this. So boxing is very different. You have 4 or 5 events a year. The spend isn't the same. The caliber of the commentators aren't paid the same, so on, so on. With these league sports, a lot more volume, a lot more pay, a lot more recognition of hierarchy. So it is more expensive. But I just feel like that once you start that cost cutting, you sort of start losing that personal touch. There's a lot more other things that they can cut. I
totally agree. It's a very good point. And by extension of that, I think that using Channel 7 as an example, so they should use its commentary team. If they have to travel for a Friday night, go to Sydney. And if they want to cut costs, have dedicated commentators in Adelaide, Brisbane, and Perth, so that the other people don't have to travel.
Exactly, because there's plenty of ex-AFL players that could fill in all those states.
No, exactly. And you're right. I think it lessens the product when you have, for example, on Fox Sports, when they often use commentators standing in a studio with an enormous screen behind them, commentating off the screen with one commentator, I think, who was actually at the ground with a boundary rider. Maybe it just, and I know it's 2023 and I know it's a new world of media, but it just lacks that commonality, that touch that we want to have where the people are at the ground.
Absolutely, 100%. All right. Well, at the moment, I think things are going to stay the way they are for a while, and it's going to take something extravagant to get things changed, in my opinion, because these guys are all about cost cutting. Leo Messi, for some, he's the GOAT, arrives in Miami. Into Miami, pretty much.
Well, before you go on, explain to all our viewers, for those, that minute amount of people who don't know who Lionel Messi is, explain who he is.
He's the second greatest football player of our time.
Well, who's first?
Cristiano Ronaldo.
Okay, fair enough. Well, that's debatable. I mean, some would reverse that order, but Lionel Messi is
some are going to come after me now. But,
yeah, correct. The Argentinian.
Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you, Tony. As always, every week, mate. You're an absolute legend. And for everyone out there, take care, everyone. We'll catch you.